station staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Very busy news day on a Wednesday. Thank you. Welcome to Pushing the Limits. Of course, you could be watching, listening on the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network. We're all over the place. We're on TikTok. We're on Twitch. Of course, my personal website, which is pushingthelimits.live. And we're on the YouTube, of course, as well, in the YouTube Super Chat at PTL Radio Show. Very busy show lined up for you today. A lot of breaking news and a lot to talk about. Daniel Koh, the former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden, will be joining us on the show here in just a few minutes. All the news was breaking yesterday about the possibility that the U.S. getting involved in a war with Iran. I have some new numbers that I do want to share with all of you before we get to our guest here in a few. I can tell you right now, the stagflation warning is on. The newest numbers that have come out are showing that inflation is actually up 3%. Growth is down 1.4%. The unemployment rate is up to 4.5%. Is this Trump's golden age, getting us into ill-advised wars? I think not. So to talk to us a little bit about this, we were promised a lot of different things under Donald Trump, and I figured what better person to talk a little bit about this and what has happened in the first 4 months of this administration. His name is Daniel Koh. He is the former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden, and it is a pleasure having Daniel joining us on the show right now. Thank you so much for being here, Daniel. How are you?
Brian, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. I wanted to get your first reaction to this. It appears as though we are going to be involved in a war with Iran. Donald Trump came into office promising he would be a no-war president and he would be a peace president. What is your reaction to what is transpiring here over the course of the last 24 to 48 hours?
What I think is really concerning is not necessarily a decision about military action, which I think is not well thought out to begin with President Trump, but the way it seems like he's made this decision, right? And you can't trust what he says, so you can look at the reporting that's been out there, things like, he saw the way Israel attacked Iran and he thought it was impressive, so it changed his mind. Or, you have Secretary Rubio out there saying that we didn't have anything to do with it, and then he comes out and says they have everything to do with it. It just gives no confidence to the American people whatsoever that this is a president who is thinking things out thoughtfully. Remember, this is a president who memos were seen to be, if they're more than one page, were seen to be too voluminous, and that people were trying to figure out ways for him to read basic memos, right? So, when you're putting American lives at risk, not just people at home, but military abroad, you have to have someone who's thinking through these things very rationally and thoughtfully, and there's just no evidence that this president is doing so.
Agree. So, Daniel, every single day, as someone yourself who worked in the Biden administration, it seems like almost every day Donald Trump wants to blame Joe Biden for all of his problems. He wants to blame Joe Biden for inflation. I just gave the numbers out there. Inflation's up to 3%. Growth is down 1.4%. Unemployment up to 4.5%. Joe Biden, as you know, left Donald Trump with a good economy, a very similar economy, by the way, to the economy Barack Obama left Donald Trump. What do you make of the fact on a daily basis, as someone who worked in his Joe Biden's administration, where Trump wants to blame you guys for all of his problems?
Look, I think part of this is politics. I get it. Every administration tries to blame the previous administration. I think President Biden was a lot less like this than President Trump. I'm obviously biased, but that's the way I feel. Look, I think the sad reality is we are in a situation where a lot of people, especially MAGA Republicans, are all getting their information from sources that aren't objective, right? And so they know, the president knows that if he can just blame President Biden for everything, the wheels will turn for the sources that he needs to push out that information. The reality, though, is I think people are increasingly not fooled, right? You see it in the numbers don't lie. The approval ratings for President Trump are some of the lowest they've been since his administration began. It's the lowest of any president at this point in modern history. And so I think people are not fooled, especially those independent voters that candidly Democrats are going to need in 26 and 28 to win back.
I wanted to ask you, and this is not the most important issue facing the country or the world right now, but I do want to ask you about it. The book that Jake Tapper put out, which I thought was pathetic. I'm going to be honest with you, Daniel. I thought it was a money grab, and I think it's a joke. But I think we all could agree, Daniel, and you tell me if you disagree. Yeah, Joe Biden's not the same guy he was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. He's in his early 80s, right? But I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. But yet it seems like we have a lot of doctors on Fox News and OAN and Newsmax. What do you make of this book, which, by the way, really doesn't put out any real sources, right, on the fact that, oh, well, they were hiding the health of Joe Biden and his health was deteriorating, and the attacks on Joe Biden's family? I'm just wondering, what do you make of this? And do you agree with me that this was just a money grab?
Look, I think the reality is one of the things that actually distressed me about the authors. So I know those authors, and I've had conversations with both of them, in professional settings. Is this notion that because it happened after the election, that it's real, that the sourcing is real and people were honest. Everyone knows that success has many people who associate themselves with it, and failures don't have that many people, right? So the reality is, I think more likely people wanted to blame somebody after the election. And of course, the president is an easy target. The president is a big boy, and he is a mature person who understands that there are people who are going to blame him for the loss. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that there's a lot of people who are easily going to point not to themselves for strategies that they try to employ or what have you, but blame President Biden. And you're absolutely right. President Biden is older, right? He is 82 now. He doesn't move as fast as he used to. But when I was with him, and again, there will be many people who will never believe the words that are coming out of my mouth. That's not my problem, right? I can only tell you what I saw. When I sat with him for hours on end during Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, he would not just call, and by the way, contrast this with Governor Newsom and the way President Trump has treated Governor Newsom, right? He would not only call Democrats, he would call Republicans. He would not only call senators, he would call city commissioners and just ask them how they're doing. There was a mayor in North Carolina, Zeb Smathers, a mayor of a city of 4,500 people. The president wanted to speak to him because they had catastrophic damage to their community. And for that mayor, that was the whole world, right? For that city, that was their whole world. And the lift that the president was able to bring that just by, getting on the phone with him. He was on the phone with him for 20 minutes. And I still remember the conversation. Mm-hmm. That's what a president should do. That is the example that a president should set. And by the way, that doesn't need to be just a Democrat, right? A president just needs to set an example for the country. And I think a lot of what you are seeing, the discord, the division, the sniping, personal assaults that you're seeing on X or what have you, is a result of the leadership of a president who glorifies pettiness, who glorifies division and name calling. And if you have that example, then it's really hard for people to rise above that, because people look at their president for example of how they should behave.
If you're just joining us, by the way, he is Daniel Koh. He's the former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden. Listen, there's no comparison between Joe Biden, the man, and Donald Trump. Obviously, I voted for Joe Biden. I've always said I think he's a decent man, a man of principle, a man of character. I think he has a good family and a lovely wife. With that being said, though, one of my biggest criticisms of Joe Biden is the fact that he decided to step down and allow Kamala to run for president. I thought he waited too late, Daniel. I'll be honest with you. I think it tarnishes in an aspect of his legacy. Again, I think he's a very good man. I thought he was a good president. Why do you think he waited so late to do so? And do you agree with me that looking back on it, it was a mistake and he should have allowed people a little bit more time to find out who would be running against Donald Trump? What do you say to that? Do you disagree with me on that?
Well, look, knowing the outcome now, there's obviously a lot of conversations that we could have. And for me, I don't, there's plenty of scenarios, so I don't really want to go through every single one that could potentially exist. What I do want to say, though, is that I was fortunate enough to work with both President Biden and Vice President Harris, and with Vice President Harris's team during the kind of home stretch, so to speak, after the switch happened. There were so many barbs thrown at Vice President Harris, her family, the second gentleman, et cetera. She is an incredibly tough person and an incredibly high standard for her team. And I can't even tell you how many times I either was sitting in a room or was personally, questioned about a memo that one of us wrote about prep for, I went with her to Charlotte, North Carolina during the hurricane recovery. She demanded excellence on everything that she did. She read every piece of the memo and she would know if there was a mistake in there or a question that wasn't filled. That's what you want in a president, somebody who understands the burden of the responsibility that he or she has every day and is going to take that responsibility incredibly seriously and hold their staff to that. So there was this Washington Post article I remember during the campaign with some people who used to work for her saying, oh, she was too harsh or whatever. You want someone with an incredibly high standard in that. The notion that you wouldn't want someone to keep their staff to the highest standard is just absurd. So look, there's still a lot to be written about 2024. And I'm not going to say that there weren't mistakes made, but we had two incredible leaders. And I think, in this media environment, there's a lot that's said now that I think is pretty unfair.
Yeah, listen, I think Harris, again, I think she would have been a great president. I think she would have done a really good job. That's why I voted for her. Now, I'll be honest with you, I probably would have voted for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump, but I like Kamala Harris, and I think she would have done a fine job. Let's look forward now. Let's look ahead instead of backwards. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the midterms coming up. Listen, there are a lot of people in this country, as you know, Daniel, that are very concerned and worried about the direction of this country. Donald Trump not giving people the right to due process. We know what happened with people that were sent to El Salvador. I talked to you a little bit about inflation. Now it appears as though we're going to be getting into a war with Iran. The Ukraine war, I think, is worse off now than it was on day one when he took office. Trump making all these promises to the American people hasn't really fulfilled any of them other than pardoning a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists, some of whom beat police officers their own batons. What worries you most about what is going on in this country right now under this Donald Trump? I'm going to call it a dictatorship because that's what I think it is.
What concerns me is that it seems like every day he or his administration does something worse and more objectionable than the day before, which, by the way, makes you forget about or not give enough attention to the thing that he did that was egregious the day before, right? Little things. Let me just give you a small example. The Presidential Personnel Office oversees 4,000 political appointments. It's the job of the head of the Presidential Personnel Office to make sure that every single one of those people are vetted, don't have any connections to foreign governments, don't have extensive criminal records that could compromise their ability to be government officials. It was reported a few days ago that the head of the Presidential Personnel Office has not filled out his background check form that everyone is supposed to fill out. Now, under the President Biden's administration, if that had happened, Gautam, who was the head of the Presidential Personnel, he was so buttoned up about that because you have to be. Right? The power that these people yield is so great that you have to make sure that these are people of the highest character. But that was just no one really talked about it because there's so many other things, right? So what concerns me most about the things that you and I don't know, right? What's coming next? And it seems to be a relationship between something that comes out about the president doesn't reflect well on him, that he wags the dog with something else. And so as things become more serious, as his numbers start falling even more, what I worry about is the things that you and I don't know yet that's to come, that the next day we may forget about because something else comes up.
I always would say under the Biden administration, there were so many people like you, so many competent people with great resumes and distinguished people with character, with a moral compass that worked under Joe Biden. I look at this administration now, and I see people that are spineless, people like Marco Rubio, who I think is a very smart, accomplished man, but is spineless. And then I see people that have no business being in that position, whether it be a Kash Patel or a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I wanted to ask you about that. Do you have any information that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did reach out to you guys because he wanted to work for Kamala Harris, if in fact she did win? Do you have any knowledge of that?
I don't have knowledge of that personally. I certainly read the reports, and again, this is politics, so very little surprises me at this point. But what I would say is having those competent people is important, not just because they can serve their job well, but because there are people who are not afraid to push back on the president or his staff, right? And so I was deputy cabinet secretary. I worked closely with the cabinet, and then I was deputy director of intergovernmental affairs. So I worked closely with governors and mayors around the country. And good, thoughtful apparatus in a White House are people who express concern to people like me or others, like I don't like this thing or that thing, or hey, there's a hurricane coming. Let's get on with FEMA and make sure that they're there and ready. A administration like the Trump administration that seems to think that they have everything figured out and they know everything just leads to a horrible outcome for everyone, right? Because a administration that understands that, we understood, and Tom Perez, my boss, who was the head of intergovernmental affairs, understood that the eyes and ears of people of the administration and the communities were not us in DC. It was the people who were the mayors in North Carolina or, in Charlotte, or Republican mayors and Democratic mayors alike. So the notion that we would not call them, not engage them, and not respond to them was really important. And so, when I hear President Trump on Air Force One saying, like, why would I call Governor Walz? It's the right thing to do. And B, if you don't have good relationships with those eyes and ears on the ground, you're not going to be a good administration, full stop.
Yeah, just despicable, especially with what happened in Minnesota, and for Donald Trump not to even pick up the phone. I remember when Joe Biden picked up the phone, if you recall, when Mitch McConnell was having those freeze-ups. Joe Biden was the first guy to call him to see how he was doing. Donald Trump, the opposite there. Listen, I know you've had a lot of, obviously, private conversations with Joe Biden. I don't know if you could share anything with us as far as the types of conversations when Donald Trump's name was brought up. What were the things that you can share with us, if anything, about what Joe Biden would say, or even a Kamala Harris at the time, the vice president, would say when you guys did discuss Donald Trump in the conversation?
Look, I think the way you would see that, let me put it diplomatically, the way you would see them react in public when people brought up President Trump was very similar to the way they would do it in private. But let me give you a story that I think it typifies the kind of president Joe Biden was, that I think we lack in the White House today, to say the least. When we were meeting in the Roosevelt Room, which is right outside the Oval, to talk about the hurricanes, I said to the president, I said, Mr. President, a lot of people are losing their homes out there. And he said, Dan, it's not just about the homes. It's the memories they've built in the homes, and it's the pictures that are in the homes that are getting destroyed that they'll never get back. And I actually, I'm kind of an emotional guy, as you could maybe guess. And I actually left almost in tears, because I was like, holy shit. Like, this guy is at the peak of his career. He lives in the Oval Office. He's got security around him 24/7. Like, in objectively speaking, he is physically removed from reality in a way that no other person in the United States is. But yet that was his first thought, right? Mm-hmm. It was about people's photographs that they have. Everyone knows this, right? Everyone has photographs that were a flood in their house or something, they would lose forever. And I thought to myself, that's the kind of guy I want leading our country. I don't care if he shuffles a little more than he used to, right? I want someone with that kind of empathy first, and then everything else comes from that.
Couldn't agree with you more. I've always said that about Joe Biden, that I think one of his best character traits is his empathy for others, based on some of the stuff he's been through in his life. When he talked about loss, and he's a caring man, and he's a man of empathy, and I've always said that about Joe Biden. Final question for you, Daniel, and by the way, I really do appreciate you being here. If you had the opportunity today to speak face-to-face with Donald Trump privately, I'm curious, as someone who worked in the Biden administration, what would you say to him face-to-face?
I would say, Mr. President, this job is not about you. It's about the American people and how we can best serve the American people. Of course, you're the president. It's your job to set the tone and set the example. But with that example comes tremendous responsibility, and you're failing to meet that moment, to say the least. Listen to the governors, listen to the mayors, go out and listen to the people who are having trouble paying their bills. The small business owner in Philadelphia who's scared shitless because the tariffs are going to increase their materials that they're going to have to put together to sell. Talk to the transgender kid who is confused about their future and are listening to you every single day, just like kick the shit out of them for no reason, right? Like, have a little humanity, man, and realize that your ego is so incredibly out of step with where we need to go as a country and how you need to lead. And that's the reason why your numbers keep going down, sir, is that you don't understand what it means to be president.
Well said, Daniel. I love your appearances on Fox News. I wish more Democrats would go on Fox News. I just think you do a great job. Keep up the great work, my friend, and hopefully we can have you on again down the road. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work. This is how we expand the tent, right? You doing your work, all of the followers that you have, we need to get out there to where people are, no matter where they are, and make sure that people understand what's at stake here. So I really appreciate all the work, and I know how hard it is to build what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. That's really nice of you to say. I appreciate you. Daniel Koh, everybody, the former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden. Always appreciate him, and especially his appearances on Fox News. By
the way, I didn't ask if I could swear on this.
That's okay. You're good. You're good, Daniel. I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everybody. That's Daniel Koh, everybody, former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden. We appreciate him taking the time to join us. He'll be on again down the road. Daniel's a really good dude, and unfortunately, you just don't have many people like him that are working in the Trump administration these days. So as I mentioned, as we run down what is going on right now, President Donald Trump said his patience with Iran has already run out. He has declined to say earlier today whether he's made a decision on U.S. military intervention in the escalating Israel-Iran conflict. Here's what I will tell you right now, and these are the statistics that are not made up, ladies and gentlemen. Inflation is up to 3%. Growth is down to 1.4%. Unemployment is up to 4.5%. And they're holding steady the rates for now, but still expect 2 cuts this year. Iran has already issued a warning to the United States. Israel and Iran continue to trade strikes. The war in Ukraine is still going strong. Sadly, I wish that wasn't the case. I want to play you a clip that I believe is very, very important. And I played this clip yesterday, and I'm going to play it again today. And the reason why I'm going to play it for you again today is because Tulsi Gabbard was under oath and was asked about the possibility of nuclear capabilities of Iran. And she was asked specifically about this, and she said, no, we do not believe that Iran at this point, based on our intelligence, that they are attempting to pursue their nuclear capabilities or build their nuclear capabilities in Iran. And Donald Trump was asked about this on Air Force One yesterday. This is Tulsi Gabbard, a man who he chose. She was under oath, and she said, no, there's no evidence to suggest that Iran is doing this. This is what Donald Trump said on Air Force One yesterday in regards to what Tulsi Gabbard said when she was under oath.
To be able to have a nuclear weapon. But how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one. I got this one on you.
So there you go. Donald Trump is completely dismissing Tulsi Gabbard. I also find it is interesting that Tulsi Gabbard was not invited to the meeting they had yesterday. And it seems clear from all the reporting, at least that I've seen from multiple outlets, that Tulsi's testimony was very accurately stated the position of the U.S. intel community on Iran's nuke program. Now, the Israeli intel obviously disagreed and felt Iran was further along. Trump has sided with Benjamin Netanyahu. So it comes down to 2 things here, ladies and gentlemen. One of 2 things. It's very simple, and I'm going to just clear it up for everybody right now. Either Israel's intelligence was more accurate. I suppose that could be possible, but I'm going to go with the latter here, that they exaggerated their report to manipulate Donald Trump, just like all other world leaders have manipulated Donald Trump. That's what I think Benjamin Netanyahu did. That's what I think Israel has done. And I'm going to be very clear on how I am pro-Israel. I am not pro-Benjamin Netanyahu. I think he's hurt Israel. I think he is an imbecile and a war criminal. I've said that about Benjamin Netanyahu before. I'll say it again. I am pro-Israel. But I'm going to tell you something. We should not be involved with this war. This has been going on for decades in the Middle East. It's going to continue to go on. The U.S. should not be involved in this situation. Let Israel deal with it. What is going on in Ukraine is a completely different scenario. And then there are fools like Mark Levin. Mr. Constitutionalist, are you a liberal? It's my Mark Levin impersonation. So Mark Levin is losing his mind, and he says, pretty much verbatim, anybody that's worried about World War III sounds like a Marxist Islamist. That's what he said. Have a listen to this.
Yeah. So where are they? They're nowhere. How about China? Nowhere. How about Russia? Nowhere. What happened to World War III? There is no World War III. They all sound like a bunch of Marxist Islamists. They don't sound like patriotic Americans. Let me be clear. This is good versus evil. You're either a patriotic American who's going to get behind the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, or you're not.
So that is Mr. Mark Levin, who is saying anyone who is worried about World War III sounds like a Marxist Islamist. Let me be very clear. Mark Levin sounds like a right-wing MAGA buffoon lunatic, because that's exactly who he is, and he's losing his mind. So here is what we are going to do. I want to play you some audio when we come back Of course, our very special guest, as he joins us every Wednesday, Leonard Cardinal will be here, 20-year police officer and a former lieutenant. It's always great having Leonard here. We'll get him when we come back. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm starting to agree with Tucker Carlson on at least a few things. Tucker Carlson absolutely destroyed Ted Cruz in an interview yesterday. Now, when I say destroy, I mean Ted Cruz was beyond embarrassed, and he was exposed for his blatant incompetence. We have the audio to prove it for you, and we are going to play that for you when we come back. Leonard is going to be joining us when we come back. We're also going to take some phone calls when we come back. The number is 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you would like to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. We have the audio. Tucker Carlson exposing the ignorance, the complicitness of Ted Cruz in real time. It's incredible, and it's fascinating. And I actually will give Tucker Carlson credit for this one because I thought he pushed back at Ted Cruz very well. He rarely does that with righties, but he did that with Ted Cruz. We're going to play that for you when we come back. We'll be back in 90 seconds. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
You are way too smart, way too talented, way too good to be where you are. You are meant to be making way more money, feel way hotter in your body, and having way more fun. Hi, I'm Nicole Mitchell, and I'm a life coach. I help you get hotter and richer. If that is what you're looking for, you can find me at NicoleMitchell.com. My name, Nicole, is with a K, NicoleMitchell.com. You can reach out to me on my website or on Instagram, and I will be happy to be in touch and figure out what you're looking for and how I can support you in getting there.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYou101.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. We just had Daniel Koh on the line, former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden. Interesting conversation. Smart guy. It was a lot of fun talking with him. And tomorrow on the program, by the way, for Midas Touch, Ron Filipkowski will be joining us, so that will be interesting. I don't want to make the official announcement yet, but we have a huge MAGA Republican that might be joining me in studio on Friday. Don't want to make the announcement yet because it's not completely official, but hopefully I'll be able to make the announcement tomorrow. So we're certainly looking forward to that. Joining us in studio right now, he is not a huge MAGA Republican. His name is Leonard Cardinal, 20-year plus police officer and former lieutenant out here. As Leonard joins me every Wednesday in studio. Leonard, it is good to see you, my friend. I'm sorry I couldn't be here yesterday, but you guys held the fort very well. I appreciate you being here, Leonard. How are you?
How you doing, Brian? Thanks for inviting me. Sounds like you had a really good vacation.
I did.
Relaxed.
It was much needed in San Diego on the beaches and hanging out with some awesome friends of mine.
Of course, Paul Lance did a great job.
Yeah,
Great
Paul
guy.
did a great job. Paul's a great guy, and I certainly appreciate
Enjoyed
him. And
speaking
I
with
had
him.
to call in for at least 2 minutes and just say hello. But I
That was fun.
appreciate you being here, Leonard, as always. So, Leonard, I can't believe I'm about to say this. Call it a first, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm starting to agree with Tucker Carlson on some things. First of all, he is very anti-go to war with Iran. He's right on that issue. He's been right about the Ukraine issue, even though he is pro-Russia and he's full of Russian propaganda. And I think Tucker Carlson is a despicable human being. But the last couple of days, I find myself agreeing with him. He had a chance to sit down on his show and speak with Ted Cruz. Now, I've been very clear about Cancun Cruz. He's another despicable human being. He's a right-wing turd who only cares about himself. When he ran for president, he called Donald Trump a liar and every single name in the book. In fact, I think he was harsher on Donald Trump than even I am. And then all of a sudden, when Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States, he wears the Donald Trump knee pads. He has no credibility. He flies off to Cancun and then blames his kids when the entire state he was in and his constituents were in an emergency. So this is the point in the interview, Leonard, where Tucker is asking Ted Cruz about Iran. As you know, Ted Cruz is one of the few Republicans now very outspoken about, yes, we need to go to war with Iran. No doubt in Ted Cruz's mind, Donald Trump's doing the right thing. But Tucker Carlson starts questioning him on some very basic things about Iran that Ted Cruz can't answer. Have a listen to this.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that
because if
relevant?
you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay.
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims
about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel. High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, so Leonard, there's a lot to dissect there. Let me just quickly review, and then I want to get your thoughts. Ted Cruz did say we were bombing Iran. Okay, when you say we, that means we're included in that. He doesn't know. We're talking about the very basics. When you are going to be involved in a war and you're a sitting senator, you probably should know a little bit about that country that we are going to bomb. He doesn't know the population of Iran. He doesn't even know any background of the people that live in the country. And then he's making it like it's some sort of gotcha question that Tucker Carlson is doing. And I'm very glad Tucker Carlson did do that because, again, it exposes how stupid and uneducated and ill-informed Ted Cruz is. And he's just going to vote and do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do.
I think a lot of shady MAGAs operate that way. They just get a few talking points. They hear what Trump says. They watch Fox News. But I would agree with you. I don't like Tucker Carlson. I think he's a bad person. I think he's a bad seed. And he's done a lot of things to advance his own career. In fact, people are saying that he pulled this interview because he's not on the news station anymore and he's trying to get popular again. But I would agree with you with regard to Tucker Carlson because anything that's objectively correct, you should probably agree with, right? No matter where you stand. And this was a stunt by him to get some attention and it worked. But I do believe that Ted Cruz should know a lot about that country, because regime change has been discussed, leadership has been discussed. He should know that there's 90 to 92 million people. He should
But
know
he's
that
not alone. What you just said is correct.
Ask any MAGA.
Most MAGA Republicans that are in office, I believe if they were in that same chair, they would have been unable to answer the same questions that Tucker was asking Ted Cruz. So I agree with you. I think these are many of the Republicans, just like a Marjorie Taylor Greene who votes for a big, beautiful bill. And then all of a sudden, when she finds out what's actually in the bill, she's like, oh, well, I didn't read that. That's what these MAGA Republicans do. They will vote along the lines on whatever orange man tells them to do. That's exactly what Ted Cruz is doing here. He doesn't even know the basics of the population.
He kind of did, though, because he said they're predominantly Persians. That's accurate. He said that the most popular religion is Shiite. I don't believe it is. Yeah. But there is a lot of Shiite influence in that country. So if he would have just relaxed, and instead of trying to be shady MAGA, that's my expression, shady MAGAs, if he would have just answered it with the knowledge that he thought he had, I think he would have done much better in the interview. But good for Tucker Carlson for bringing out some real facts.
Yeah. So it gets worse. So there is a new clip that is out right now that was released earlier today. This is another clip where Tucker Carlson is absolutely just cooking Ted Cruz, and another example of how ignorant Ted Cruz is, and the fact that so many right-wingers on social media and interviews, when they talk about whether the U.S. should go to war, they keep basing it off of passages in the Bible. This is very embarrassing. Listen to this exchange.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the...
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
Okay, so again, I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous. I'm not a very religious person, but I can guarantee you there is nothing in the Bible that says we must support Israel under any government regime when it comes to any of their choices, in this case, going to war with Iran. There is absolutely nothing in the Bible that says that. Ted Cruz is an idiot. He's making that claim. And when Tucker Carlson, correctly so, who also happens to be a Christian, it's important to note, is basically calling on Ted Cruz's crap and BS, he can't recite a verse or anything in the Bible that would claim that. It's just like when a MAGA Republican sometimes calls into this show and they call me a liar, and then I say, okay, what did I lie about? And then they hang up the phone. That's exactly what Ted Cruz is doing right now. It's embarrassing. And by the way, whatever happened, even if that was true, which by the way, Leonard, it's not. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state, you don't go by the Bible to foreign policy, and in this case, maybe getting us into another ill-advised war.
I'm a Catholic Christian, and I promise you that I've read the Bible from cover to cover many times because it's pretty difficult to understand. It's mostly stories and parables, but I can tell you that I never read anything like that. And what they're talking about in the Bible, quick context, they're talking about the 12 tribes of Israel that originally formed. That's what they're talking about. And they had nowhere to colonize. And that became, quote unquote, Israel. And David and Solomon were the kings, and they both got booted. And then after that, you can't really put your finger on exactly what the 12 tribes of Israel was and exactly what they were talking about. But you have to remember that's also Old Testament. So you would have to only go by the Old Testament, the original covenant, the original promise. The new covenant is the new part of the Bible where Jesus comes on scene. So you would have to differentiate between what exactly they were saying. But I can tell you that at no time have I ever been told, ever read about that, how we have to, be faithful to Israel. I don't remember it ever. And it's
because it's not in there.
Genesis.
Because it's not in there, Leonard. It's well spoken. You're absolutely right. So this is a point in the interview where Tucker Carlson questions Ted Cruz on his foreign policy failures. Yes, we do know Ted Cruz has voted pretty much on everything that has not worked out correctly when it comes to foreign policy. And this is where Ted Cruz once again gets very defensive. And I love what Tucker Carlson did here. Have a listen to this.
And I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
An unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather.
You haven't supported the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained in great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologize. So I'm
like, that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry.
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why that seems like a true disaster for the United States.
That right there, in that moment, is a microcosm of a larger picture of the entire MAGA Republican Party today, which is, Leonard, Ted Cruz voted to going to war against Russia, and he voted for these specific foreign policy issues where so many people have lost their lives, and even Ted Cruz in this interview admits it's been a total disaster. And instead of saying, shouldn't have voted for this, it was a mistake, I never wanted this to happen, what does Ted Cruz do? Not only does he not take any responsibility for his voting record, abysmal voting record, but he does what almost every other MAGA Republican does, blame it on Joe Biden. No, Mr. Cruz, this is not Joe Biden's fault. This is partially your fault, as Tucker Carlson correctly pointed out. It's exactly the Donald Trump playbook right now. Because when I give you the statistics of what's going on in this country right now, where inflation is up to 3%, the growth is down 1.4%, as I've mentioned before, unemployment rate up to 4.5%, they want to blame Joe Biden. If, in fact, we do go to war with Iran, which it appears we are, they'll blame it on Joe Biden. They'll say it's Joe Biden's war. Donald Trump, end the war in 24 hours in Ukraine. Blame it on Joe Biden. Joe Biden's weakness, instead of owning any responsibility for anything Ted Cruz has done in his life. Now, should we be surprised? Remember when Ted Cruz flew to Cancun? When his entire state of Texas was in a state of emergency, right? It was a gridlock there. It was a state of emergency. What did Ted Cruz do? He decided to get in a plane with his wife and his kids and leave the state and go on vacation. Then when he was caught and he had to face the music, did he apologize? No. He blamed his kids. You couldn't blame Joe Biden for that. So he blamed his kids because Ted Cruz is a coward.
No leadership.
None. Now, I want to share for you a story, Leonard, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I went to an event earlier today, a national event, where Jim Gray, who's a legendary broadcaster, Tom Brady, the former quarterback, of course, and legend, and the GOAT himself, Marv Albert, they're opening up a new memorabilia museum here at Fontainebleau Casino. There's a reason why I'm bringing this up. A man that I ran into is a very distinguished man who works for Fox News. His name is Trace Gallagher. Pretty good reporter. Seems like a nice guy. So I went up to Trace Gallagher today, and I wasn't recording, but I said, Trace, how you doing? I was very respectful to him. And I think most people know who Trace Gallagher is, right? He's all over Fox News as a reporter. I said, Trace, what do you make of Tucker Carlson's comments that he made attacking you guys at Fox News and saying you're just a propaganda machine? I wanted to get, and I was respectful, I wanted to get his reaction to it. And Trace rolls his eyes at me. This happened a few hours ago. I tweeted about it. He rolls his eyes and he says, Tucker's just doing this for clicks and he's doing it for ratings. Now, I didn't get into a debate with him because it wasn't the appropriate time to do so. But I thought to myself, that's exactly what you guys do 24/7. You guys on Fox News speak and talk about propaganda, what all your listeners want to hear, and misinformation so that you can get clicks and ratings. It's why you were sued and lost a lawsuit of over $900 million from Dominion voting machines. Now, that's what I wanted to say to Trace Gallagher, because if that's what he truly thinks, he's delusional. But I wanted to get his reaction. Now, that's what Tucker Carlson does as well. There are times where he does good interviews and he presses people. He did a good job with Ted Cruz. I guess a squirrel can find a nut once in a while. But for Trace Gallagher to say that there's no credibility to what Tucker Carlson said about Fox News being a propaganda machine and only doing and saying things for their base, that the things that they want to hear, and to say that Tucker only said that for ratings, that he was some sort of disgruntled employee. No, I believe what Tucker Carlson said is absolutely accurate. That is what Fox News is. Now, I also understand Trace Gallagher is still probably making a very large salary, and he doesn't want to speak badly about the network he worked on. So just say no comment. I'd rather not talk about that. Okay, fine. I'd have a little bit of respect for you. But Trace Gallagher is saying that, no, Tucker Carlson, there's nothing to see here. He's just saying that for clicks. First of all, Tucker Carlson doesn't need to say something for clicks.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, it did. But Trace Gallagher was very, in my personal opinion, complicit, I guess is one word, not being intellectually honest with me. And I found a lot of fakeness in his answer earlier today. I just spoke to Trace Gallagher a few hours ago, so I wanted to share that story with all of you. I don't know what you think about that. But
does it get any more fake than showing Trump at the parade and putting in background applause? I mean, if you're going to talk about
they did do that.
and
It's like COVID during an NBA game,
that's
right?
Not shameless.
Yeah, completely shameless. Well, that was an embarrassment altogether.
Right, and that's the same propaganda machine that they roll out. And in the morning,
there you go. There's applause. We're giving you some fake applause right now. Yeah. Was that from the Trump rally? Oh no, okay. Was that from the Trump?
That was from our show.
Okay.
Fans.
There we go. Yeah.
Just so people know that was real. A lot of people are clapping for us. People are saying so. That's part of the propaganda machine. And what Fox News did figure out is put out your talking points the night before or in the morning early, and they all pick up the talking points throughout the day. This is real. This is a real thing. And then what they do is they go out into the world and they try to push these talking points on other people. He was prepped. He's on the same page that everybody on Fox News was talking about. Tucker Carlson's trying to regain some popularity, and he lost popularity because of the things he's been through, and he got in trouble and things like that. But at the same time, isn't that how they operate?
It is exactly how they operate. And I will tell you something. There are people on social media, some of whom that I call cowards. They won't call into a radio show, but they'll be Twitter, warriors or keyboard warriors, just like somebody like Mike Lee, who we've talked about the last couple of days, who put out a terrible, he's a terrible person. Wow. He puts out a tweet mocking and making a joke out of the horrible situation that took place in Minnesota where innocent people lost their lives. And then when Mike Lee is asked about it by members of the media, he dodges them and he runs away, but he takes the tweet down because he's a coward. And for the people out there that are cowards, that are afraid to call into a radio show and have a debate with me, that they say Trump broke me. No, Trump is breaking the country, not in a good way. I mentioned the inflation numbers, the latest growth, which is down 1.4%. I mentioned the unemployment numbers, the fact that it appears as though we're going to be engaging in another war, this time with Iran. I mentioned the fact that what is going on in Ukraine is a disaster. And every single time Donald Trump says Putin wants peace, there's another airstrike where innocent women and children lose their lives. And he embarrasses himself on a world stage over and over and over again. No, this isn't about me. It's not about Trump breaking me. It's about Trump breaking families. It's about people that are getting arrested, coming out of by ICE, getting caught out of a courtroom, doing it the right way, showing up in court, trying to become a legal citizen, and then being arrested. This is about mayoral candidates being arrested. This is about sitting senators being shoved to the ground and handcuffs being put on them because they want to ask a question. No, Trump isn't breaking me. He's breaking our Constitution. He's breaking the rule of law. That's not breaking me. That's breaking America. So if you don't care about America and you don't like people who speak truth to power, people like me and Leonard, then maybe you're the one that's broken. I'm not the one that's broken. I'm the one that is going to sit here every single day and tell the truth. I am the one that is going to sit here and speak truth to power. I am the one that is going to criticize this horrible human being, this terrible man, this 34-count felon, this liable abuser, this man who has no respect for the rule of law, this man who wakes up in the morning and puts on 8 layers of orange makeup with his girdle, walking around like he's Superman, but he's not. He is one of the most insecure people the world has ever seen. He is embarrassing us on a world stage every day. This isn't about me. This is about all of us. Trump isn't breaking me. He's breaking the country. He's breaking the rule of law. He's breaking our Constitution every single day he is in power. That should bother you. And guess what? If that doesn't bother you, then you are complicit. You are ill-informed, maybe possibly very ignorant or stubborn, and not willing to admit that you are wrong in the same way that Ted Cruz was not willing to admit he was wrong based on his voting record. You are the problem. If you still support Donald Trump and you support this evil dictatorship and you support this oligarchy, then you are the problem. You are the broken person. And I guarantee you, for many of these people, when they wake up and when they look in the mirror, they don't like what they see. And when your daughter comes up to you or your wife, any woman in your life that you care about, and says, why would you vote for this man? Why would you vote for someone who brags about going into teenage girls' locker rooms? Why would you vote for someone who was found liable for abusing a woman in a dressing room? Why would you vote for someone whose own ex-wife?
I got nothing to say when you ask that.
Why?
Nothing.
Why would you vote for somebody that has 25 plus women that have accused him of abuse? Why? Why would you vote for someone who attacks POWs, who attacks Gold Star families?
Takes away their medical, takes away their benefits.
Medicaid. Yeah, correct. Good point.
And the veterans, they canceled their medical
program.
program.
And for the people on January 6th, somebody like you who served as a police officer for decades, our community here in North Las Vegas. And Donald Trump basically said, we don't care about you because if you beat a police officer on January 6th, not only are you a hostage and a patriot, but I'm going to pardon you.
They called LA a violent protest because they lobbed a couple of water balls. And I don't condone violence. I don't condone attacking police or the military or whatever, but it was a very small scale. And then when you contrast it with people beating police officers with poles and the American flag on the pole, breaking windows, forcing themselves into the Capitol, it's not a fair comparison. But let me ask you a question on Mike Lee. Do you think what he did was possibly a dog whistle? Because he said, you know, they got this violence came upon them because of the left.
Well, here's what I will say to that.
Because of who they are.
Here's what I'll say to that. I played some audio for Mike Lee yesterday, back in the day before Donald Trump was president of the United States. Mike Lee was saying he wouldn't want his kids around Donald Trump. Mike Lee said on the record that, you know, Donald Trump's conduct was despicable. And then something happened and Donald Trump hijacked the Republican Party. And then people like Mike Lee and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio.
How many speeches did he give?
Yep, many of these
never let this guy be president. How many times did he say that?
Because they have no backbone. And Stefanik is another one. They have no backbone. And all they care about is themselves. And that's who Mike Lee is. He's a despicable human being, but he took it to another level the other day. After innocent people lost their lives, he decided to put up a tweet and make a joke about it. Now, he did take the tweet down. No public apology, no admitting that he was wrong, nothing. So there's a lot that we're talking about today. We got Leonard Cardinal in studio, and we do want to take your phone calls. And for those MAGA Republicans out there that say that I'm broken, that Trump broke me, no, you're the one that's broken. You are the one that wears the Donald Trump knee pads 24/7. You are the one that is complicit, that you cannot seem to understand or fail to understand the damage that Donald Trump is doing to this country and, quite frankly, the world. And it is going to take decades for us to recover from it. The economy is in the tank. And Trump's golden age, Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Trump's golden age. The wars are raging everywhere.
Which he said he would stop. He said it would only take him 24 hours. And
yeah,
all I have to do is talk to them, and they won't even talk to him. But can I bring up one thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say.
He said this morning that he's talking to Iran.
Yeah.
About, and then they asked Iran, and Iran says we don't know what we're talking about. We haven't spoken to him. He's lying.
Well, Donald Trump
to the American public.
Donald Trump just put out a tweet saying that Tucker Carlson apologized to him. Apparently, he just said it in a press conference.
Apologized to who?
Yeah, apparently Trump's saying that Tucker apologized to him. I don't know if I believe that. I don't believe anything that Donald Trump says. But as I said earlier, Trump's golden age. There are wars all over the world, massive debt, civil strife. And division. And as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, the economy is literally getting flushed down the toilet. The number to
go ahead.
I was just going to say the number to call. That's what we're talking about today. The number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. And by the way, somebody on social media, again, I've heard this on Tucker. I've heard this on Piers Morgan's show. It doesn't work well for Republicans when they play this game with me, whether it be on when they say I have TDS, they have TFS. Go ahead and look that up.
But who's deranged, Brian? If you look at the definition, who's really deranged? The people who can't focus on reality, the people who believe something that's not real, the people that have no empathy and no feeling for anyone. Who's really deranged?
Well, I think the person that we're going to play right now, that is Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump just moments ago claiming that Tucker Carlson apologized to him. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Have a listen to this.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson Senator Ted Cruz interview? It seems like this issue on whether or not the United States should strike is kind of dividing a lot of your supporters.
No, my supporters are for me. My supporters are America first. They make America great again. My supporters don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say.
Okay, so we don't need to hear any more from the orange orangutan, but he says his words were too strong. Didn't say his words were wrong. Didn't say his words were untruthful.
And objectively correct.
His words strong. Do you believe that Tucker Carlson apologized to Donald Trump? I'm going to tell you.
I don't think apologies mean anything in the MAGA world. I don't think
either.
I don't think lies mean anything to them or apologies. It could have happened. It could not have happened. But do you really think somebody who's kind of a sociopath would worry about an apology? A narcissist? Do you think they would really worry about that?
No, absolutely not. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, whether you're a MAGA supporter or not, are you okay with us going to war with Iran? Are you okay with the fact that our economy is in the tank once again with the new numbers that just came out? You like what Donald Trump is doing? Do you like this big, beautiful bill, which, by the way, is a disaster? There are a lot of Republicans that will not vote for it. Number to call, 702-221-7283. And again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Maybe we can have a MAGA call in because they're losing a lot of MAGAs because the America First. So even Steve Bannon went on the rampage and said, what happened to America First? So they're saying that even the MAGAs don't want him to go into this.
Well, I mean, they called us warmongers because we supported Ukraine, but now all of a sudden crickets from these idiots. 702-221-7283. Let's go to the phone calls now. Let's start with Brian. Brian is first up on PTL. Hey, Brian, what's going on?
Hello, Brian. Hello, Leonard. How are you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
I was just calling to talk to you. God, I can't believe this man represents the state that I live in. Good God. I've never voted for Ted Cruz in my life because I live in Texas. And honestly, it baffles me how this idiot continually keeps getting elected into office. I swear, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but, we could also talk about Governor Abbott, as I like to call him, Governor Abhole. There's a lot of morons in Texas that happen to be Republicans. Ted Cruz is an absolute embarrassment. I mean, Tucker Carlson ripped him to shreds. Not really hard, but you see, the problem is Ted Cruz usually doesn't do interviews with liberals or left-leaning media people because this is the reason. And Tucker Carlson couldn't be more further to the right and radical. But he challenged Ted Cruz, and he didn't even challenge him. It was more of just asking.
It was basic. I'm not even a politician, and I know the answer to those questions.
Right. I mean, absolutely absurd. And then he made it like it was some sort of gotcha question. You're giving Donald Trump the go-ahead and promoting going to war with Iran. You don't even know the population or the people that live there. You know nothing about the country, but yet, just like a Marjorie Taylor Greene who doesn't even read the big, beautiful bill, but votes for it and then backtracks and says, I wouldn't have voted for the bill if I read it. These people are idiots. They're incompetent. They have no business being elected officials. But as long as we have morons who vote for these morons, we're going to continue to be in the situation we're in.
You know, Brian, as usual, spot on. But instead of talking about this clown, you know, I want to pivot just a little bit because we can talk all day about Ted Cruz's idiocy. But I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but as far as Iran and the Muslim world, apparently the group that they claim is responsible for Kamala Harris losing the election, they're talking now. The Abandon Harris movement, the Abandon Biden-Harris movement 2024, apparently they're upset. They're ticked off at Donald Trump because he's siding with Israel.
They very well could be, and you're probably right, but I got to tell you, they have no credibility, and I don't even want to hear from them. I don't want to hear from those people.
How about the Latinos for Trump? How about other minority groups that openly supported Trump, and now a lot of them are getting deported? They show videos online of ICE chasing workers across fields and taking them into custody.
That's another good point too. I mean, this is how stupid this administration is. If they really want undocumented immigrants out of this country, I think they just want brown people out of this country. Think about how stupid they are. They're literally arresting people for doing the right thing. And now they're deterring some of these undocumented immigrants from showing up to court and going about it the right way because ICE agents are showing up outside these courthouses.
That gentleman showed up the other day with his paperwork ready for his court date, and they took him into custody. And
so Leonard,
the poor wife is sitting by the door crying her eyes out.
That was horrible. So Leonard, you know what this means, right? It means that many of these people who have court dates are now not going to show up. And that's why,
Brian, there's no way to win.
That's why
if you show up, you get deported. If you don't show up, you get deported. If you go to work, you get deported. But they are focusing on blue states. In the red states, not so much.
But that's why this mayoral candidate in New York City was there to help escort these people because they were scared. And then they arrest him too.
He never pushed anybody.
It's a joke.
They pushed into him
as
far as I could see.
And the images I saw, as you mentioned, Leonard, of this man's girlfriend who was crying, realizing that she might never see her boyfriend again, knocking on that door and trying to push that door to say maybe a last goodbye to her boyfriend. Is this the country that you want to live in? This is not the country that I grew up in. That's not what I want to see. And guess what? When Joe Biden and Barack Obama were deporting people, whether you think it was too many or not enough, they weren't celebrating. Okay? They didn't have Dr. Phil there with a microphone. They weren't showing up on Fox News gloating about what a wonderful thing they're doing, separating families. That's what Donald Trump is doing. That's what his administration is doing. They're celebrating and gloating on the fact that these people are suffering. This is the Trump administration. When is it going to be enough time for some of you people to realize that there's no human decency within this administration? None. Zero.
How could you watch that? How could you watch that? People are watching that on the other side and they're feeling nothing. The girl is literally sobbing. Her heart is broken.
Is that what we want,
She
Leonard?
may never see that man again. And he was there with his paperwork, with his attorney to do the right thing. So either way, you're going to lose. There's no due process. That is zero due process.
And for these MAGA, I agree. And for these MAGA morons that say, well, just come to the country legally. Okay. Which is the party that's trying to make it easier for people to gain citizenship? It's not the Republican Party. In some cases, it takes 10 to 15 years to become a legal citizen. Guess what? There's a party called the Democrat Party that is trying to make it a little bit easier for people to become naturalized citizens. The Republicans don't want that. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the same reason why Donald Trump says, make America great again. It's not make America great again. It's make America white
racism
again. They don't want brown people in this country. And they lie to you when they say, we want people from all cultures coming in here. Just do it the right way. No, they don't. Because if that was the case, then let's look at your voting record. Are you trying to make it easier for these people to come here? Or are you trying to make it harder? And your answer is going into synagogues. Your answer is going into schools. Your answer is separating families. A woman who's breastfeeding her 1-year-old girl with health issues and deporting her, or deporting people to El Salvador prisons with no due process, people that have never committed a violent crime in their life. And this is the country that you want. You were lied to. when Tom Homan and Donald Trump said, we are going to deport only the most violent criminals who happen to be undocumented. That was a lie. How do we know this? Because we've already found out that the overwhelming majority of people that have been deported are non-violent criminals. The people who maybe do things in this country that some Americans don't want to do for low wages, people that have paid their taxes in some cases for decades. Is this the country that you want? Because if the answer is yes, then you are a bigot. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Derek.
Oh, the phone lines are lighting up.
Derek is next up on PTL. What's going on, Derek?
How you doing, Brian?
Good.
Man, every day I wake up and look at the news and see what this administration is doing. I'm horrified. It's like you just said. It's like they said they want to make America great again, but truth is, it's like you said, they want to make America white again. It's all racism.
That's what it is. Yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If they deny it, then ask them, then why are Republicans making it more difficult for people to come into this country legally? If you guys are okay with people coming in here that are brown doing it the right way, then why don't you side with Democrats and make the laws a little bit easier for people to be naturalized citizens? See what they say.
What about the hypocrisy, Derek? What about the hypocrisy of kicking all these people out, and they're doing jobs that no one of these MAGAs would do, and they wouldn't do it for the same pay, and they wouldn't work as hard, and they're very spoiled when it comes to work and how hard they work, but yet they want to kick all these people out doing these jobs, cleaning hotels, working in the fields, but they not willing to. I mean, how hypocritical is that?
It's very hypocritical. And the thing is, it's affecting the economy. And it's like the thing that baffles me is like the farmers that stood for this. And it's like, don't you realize that throwing out the immigrants that are working under you, you're going to cripple yourself? Like, you just voted to put yourself out of business. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why? Oh, that's a good question. Why? Why do MAGAs vote against their own best self-interest?
I think there's a couple things, and you guys, and I appreciate your call, by the way, my friend. Thank you. I think there's a couple reasons why people vote against their own self-interest. I think the main reason, all these people are not bad people, but I think the main reason is they're very ill-informed. And I think Fox News, listen, Rupert Murdoch, these people are have done some of the worst to America. Fox News, OAN Newsmax, right-wing media propaganda machine, the Mark Levins of the world, the Sean Hannitys of the world. They spread propaganda and hate so that they can make money. And we all suffer for it because people that are ill-informed, that are unable to actually look at both sides of an issue and know and separate fact from fiction.
Let me ask you something, Brian. Who else did that? In 1933, who else did that? Who else decided to come into power and they said, I know you're angry. I know you don't like your lives. I know there's a lot of hatred. Oh, and by the way, let's blame those people. Let's blame those people for the problems that you're having. And he also said that he was the only one that could fix your problems. If you look up the history, anyone online can look it up. He said, I'm the only one that can fix your problems, but you have to remove the restrictions to my power in order for me to help you.
No
How
doubt.
twisted is that?
Extremely twisted. Let's get back to the phone calls at 702-221-7283. Let's go to Lauren. Lauren is next up on PTL. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Brian. Yeah, I just wanted to give a personal experience. Leonard, what years were you with the police force in North Las Vegas?
I was hired in 1997.
97. Okay. In the 90s, I don't know exactly what year it was, but I remember taking my wife up to, she had gotten a ticket and she was working it off on community service. And I was there with my infant son at the time. And while she was in there, they arrested her. They said that she went in to pick up another form to fill out for her community service, and nobody said anything. They just the lady at the desk called the marshal. The marshal came, arrested my wife, and put her in jail. And she stayed in jail. I believe it was Thanksgiving time.
Okay, why was she arrested?
Did she miss her community service?
It was a traffic ticket.
Okay.
But did she miss the community service? Because once you miss your community service, you get a warrant.
The community service.
Are you so help me out? Help me out, Lauren. Are you trying to correlate that to something that's happening today?
Of course.
So you disagree with the way Donald Trump is handling this? Then is that a fair assessment to make?
Do I disagree with it? No. What I'm saying is the same thing happens to.
Wait. Hold on.
Everybody.
Hold on. No, that's not true. Your wife, I would.
That is true.
Okay. Was your wife given due process? Was she able to show up?
No, she was not given due process.
She wasn't.
My wife was
arresting her is not due
black.
process. That's not part of due process.
Okay. So.
What's that?
Yeah.
Arresting her is not part of due process. So when Brian talks about due process, what he's saying is your wife showed up. It seems like you're upset because your wife showed up and she was taking care of business,
she did
community
what she
service,
was supposed to do.
and she was taken into custody. However, if you were to miss your community service, then you get a warrant for your arrest and you are able to get arrested.
Yeah, let me dissect this a little bit.
She did not miss.
Did she have the opportunity?
Totally different.
Did she have the opportunity to defend herself in a court of law?
No, she was.
Wait, hold on.
The place was.
She was.
I'll answer
she
your
was
question.
put. Okay,
She went.
but she was put in jail, and you're telling me that she didn't have a right to show up in court with an attorney?
Well, she would have had to plead not guilty. I don't mean to interrupt, but if you plead not guilty, then you go in front of a judge.
Right.
For her to be doing community service, she must have pled guilty, and then they assess the community service, which is this is going to shock you. That's due process.
No. Hold on a second. Leonard is correct, and that's the point that I was trying to make. Your wife had due process. Okay,
Yes.
It's not like somebody just walked in and arrested her and she didn't have the right to defend herself. She did. She had the right to hire an attorney. She had the right to defend herself in a court of law. Lauren, there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. You are totally okay with people getting thrown to an El Salvador prison with no due process, who have never been convicted, in some cases, never even charged with a violent crime. How could you be okay with that? Your wife had the opportunity to defend herself in a court of law. Now, you might not agree with the way they handled it, but she's still... I don't know what's so funny.
Did they allow her?
this.
Let me ask him a question, Lauren. Did they allow her to bail out? Could she bail out that day?
No, we were not allowed to bail out.
A no bail is for a murderer or a sexual predator. You can't do a no bail on a traffic ticket.
Leonard,
that's not possible.
Leonard, that may be if you're a white person. But if you're a black person,
all right. So hold on a second.
That's not the case.
So you don't like the way brown people sometimes are treated in this country, yet you're totally okay with brown.
I don't like the way people are treated in general.
All right. Well, you're the one. You're the one. Hey,
I have been held at gunpoint.
Okay, hold on.
3 times.
Let's not change the subject. Okay, I'm sorry that happened.
I'm not changing the subject.
Okay. I'm sorry you were held.
Pointing out.
I'm sorry you were held at gunpoint, but let's stick to your wife right now. You brought up her race, not me. There are brown people all over the country that are not getting due process. Your wife had the opportunity to defend herself in a court of law. She had the opportunity to hire an attorney and put in a plea. The reason she got community service is because there was some sort of deal that was put in place in a court of law. The point I'm trying to make to you, which clearly you're not understanding, is that there are people in this country.
Why is it that you think I don't understand something?
Because you're okay with people. You're okay with people getting. I'm going to try to take a deep breath here because I'm getting very frustrated, Leonard. You seem to be okay.
I don't know why you always.
I'll tell you why.
I'm not angry at you.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't say things like you say. You're okay with people in this country being sent to an El Salvador. Don't Brian me and let me finish. There's people.
Since we have had this conversation.
Well, we're going to have. Guess what? We're going to have it again, whether you like it or not.
Right now.
Because I don't feel bad for your wife. Because she had the right to due process.
There's something he's not telling
you. Don't even know the definition of what due process is, and that's probably why you're a Trump supporter, and you seem to be okay with brown people in this country being sent to an El Salvador prison with zero due process. Do you not understand that these people did not have the right to defend themselves in a court of law? That the White House is saying because of tattoos they had on their body, they could be sent to the highest maximum security prison in the world, and you don't have a problem with that? Is that what you're telling me? But you want to share me your grievances because your wife was in jail for 5 or 6 hours? Do you not understand why I'm getting frustrated with you?
No, I don't. I mean, I used to have decent conversations with you, but it seems like every time I call in, you want to bite my head off.
Lauren, let me ask you something, because what you're saying, in my opinion, doesn't add up legally. So let me ask you. If you have a misdemeanor traffic ticket and you're doing community service and you go in and they take you into custody, it means you had a warrant. Now, she either didn't go to community service, and if they wouldn't allow her to bail out, the only time they do that if there's multiple times where she doesn't show up, multiple times where there's no
No,
community
what-
service. She doesn't pay her bills. She doesn't pay her responsibilities. That is the only time they'll do no bail. Let me finish. Because at that point, the judge has ordered them to not let her bail out so the judge can see her. And in general, it's usually so the judge can throw the book at you. So there's something you're not telling us, because I think that's why Brian's getting frustrated, because what you're saying doesn't add up factually. And comparing a misdemeanor ticket to getting deported to El Salvador with no due process is a stretch for me. It's not an equal.
Well, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
is what it is.
It's
It's
a
more than
stretch.
it's ridiculous, Lauren.
My point is this. What actually happened, she did go to court. The judge said she could do community service.
Okay.
That's due process.
Go ahead.
Wait,
and then what
can
happened?
I finish?
Yeah.
So she was doing the community service. One of the papers was it was faxed into the court. She had to go in and pick up another one. So the agency that she was doing the community service for would have a form to fill out.
Okay, so there might have been a clerical error, but let me ask you a question, Lauren, okay?
Well, a clerical error in 4 days in
How many
jail?
hours? Okay, so let's just say that's true. Let's just say that your wife spent 4 days in jail. What do you think is worse? Who's the bigger victim here? Somebody who spent 4 days in jail, or somebody who is in one of the highest maximum security prisons in the world in El Salvador with no due process, being treated like an animal?
That we'll never see again.
Yeah. What do you think is worse, Lauren? Can you answer that for me, please?
I'll tell you. The fact is this.
No. I don't. No. I want you to answer. I don't want you. No.
Majority of people are being sent to their
No,
home
I
of
want you to.
origin.
I
They are
want
not-
you to answer my question directly and don't be a coward. And this is why I'm getting frustrated with you. One of many reasons. Answer my question.
I am speaking the truth.
No, you're not speaking the truth. You're not. Your wife got due process. I'm going to ask you a question again, and you failing to answer it. What do you think is worse? Your wife spending 4 days in prison, perhaps because of a clerical error. I don't know. I'm not necessarily buying your story.
They wouldn't hold her on that.
Right.
There's no way.
I'm not saying
No
I
way.
buy a story, but let's just say for argument's sake, he's
Okay.
telling the truth for a moment, which, by the way, Lauren, I don't think you are. Your wife spending 4 days in a jail here in Las Vegas, or people in an El Salvador prison that have never been convicted of a violent crime in one of the highest maximum security prisons in the world being treated like animals. I'm now asking you for a second time, what do you think is worse? Please answer the question.
If I answer the question, do I get to finish?
Answer the question and stop playing
Do
victim.
I get to finish?
You know what? I'm not going to get you. I'm not going to give you due process today on the radio, Lauren.
We're not going to negotiate.
Yeah, I'm not gonna,
airtime.
Yeah, you don't want to answer the question because you know what the answer
We
is.
don't negotiate airtime.
Let me be very clear, Lauren. There is no comparison between what allegedly your wife had to go through, which, by the way, I'm not buying. But let's just say she
There's
spent
something he's not telling
4
us.
days. By the way, she showed up in court. She had due process, but yet you're totally okay with people being sent to an El Salvador prison with no due process. That means you have no credibility. And the fact that I even had to ask that question multiple times without you answering it says all I need to know about you, Lauren. And that's why I get frustrated with you. If in fact your wife was mistreated in some way, that's one thing. But the fact that you can't say on the air that you are disgusted with the fact that people in this country are not getting the right to due process and being sent to an El Salvador prison, the fact that you are such a coward that you can't even admit that that's wrong, but you want to share with us your grievances about allegedly your wife being in jail for 4 days for a misdemeanor makes you an imbecile. 702-221-7283 is the number to
Keep
call.
calling. The phone lines are packed.
Let's go to who are we going to next here? Let's go to Brett. Brett is next up on PTL. What's up, Brett?
Hey, what's happening, fellas?
Hey.
Hey, Bert. This is a question about the El Salvadorian prisons. Is everybody being deported to those?
No.
Or are they going back to their home countries?
No, not everybody, but there were at least close to 300 people. I think the number was somewhere around 265 people. Reports are that more than 50% of those people are nonviolent criminals that have actually never been convicted of a violent crime in their life.
We were using it to try to figure out Lauren's mindset,
right,
and give him an example, an extreme example, and say, hey, by the way, are you okay with this? Are you comparing your wife having to do a day in jail because she didn't take care of her tickets to somebody who's deported? Even the warden in El Salvador, the one who runs the prison, says, once you come here, you never get out. You never see the light of day. He said that. We didn't say that.
And by the way, he said that. We didn't say that. And by the way, if it was one person that was sent over there that didn't have due process, that wasn't a violent criminal, it would be just as wrong. But there just so happens to be hundreds of people that were sent over there. It's wrong. It's wrong to be going
fair enough.
It's wrong to be going to a courtroom or ICE agents outside a courtroom waiting for somebody and arresting them and separating them from their families when they're trying to go about it the right way and show up in court. It's wrong to separate families and women and mothers who have been in this country for decades and pay their taxes, and separating those family members with children with no due process. This is wrong. It's not what our forefathers wanted. It's not what it says in our Constitution, and it's wrong.
And Trump was trying to get permission or arrange deporting people to Libya and Rwanda in South Africa and Africa, where we don't even know if we'll ever see them again. And if a federal court order didn't stop him, I believe he would have deported people to those countries. And that's a fact. That was in the news.
Yeah, I can't understand people like Lauren that are married to African Americans or people. My wife's Puerto Rican, and I feel like I'm totally on the right side of this, and I would never cheer on people being deported, hardworking people. I live in West Palm Beach, about less than a mile from Trump, and I'm here to tell you, he has so many people that barely speak a lick of English working in his country clubs. The people at his gate at Trump International barely speak English. So he's the biggest hypocrite. I mean, as long as he can benefit from it, he doesn't care.
Most of his supporters, I appreciate your call, my friend, and I agree with you. Most of Donald Trump's supporters are hypocrites. They preach God and they preach Jesus, and yet they support a 34-count felon who is a liable abuser. They're the ones who buy the Bibles that are made in China for $3, for $60. They're the ones who call Democrats warmongers because people like me, not even a Democrat, support Ukraine, but I'm a warmonger. But yet Donald Trump can talk about going to war with Iran, and they have no problem with that. What's going on in Yemen? They don't want to talk about that, the bombings over the course of the last month. But somehow we're warmongers because we support Ukraine. MAGA Republicans are some of the biggest hypocrites in the world.
And not one of them, including their leader, can put together a coherent argument. Even when you listen to Donald Trump, he all he has is talking points, and he makes smart comments and he insults people. But does he ever really make a good factual argument?
Never.
And they're okay with that. They voted for that.
They're totally okay with it, and many of them are still okay with it. Let's get back to the phone lines. Let's go to Mark. Mark is next. What's up, Mark?
Hey, Brian. A couple of things. First, Lauren, you're a garbage pail, and I couldn't care about you or your wife. And you made a great point in acknowledging our point. Len, I think it was you, Len, when you said, I just can't understand when people vote against their best interests. Well, there you go. Leonard, there you go. Lauren proved your point, didn't he? When it doesn't affect them, they don't care. That's the whole point behind it. And the other thing I would like to bring out is that apologies, I accept when someone bumps into you or someone drops something or whatever. Those are fine. But I don't accept apologies when idiots like Mike Lee, who wants to cut your Social Security, puts a post up and jokes about a murder. That's not an apology when he takes it down.
I agree.
That's forced to take it down.
Well, if anybody, if you or I did something, and thank you, Mark, for the call. If you or I did something like that at our job, we would be fired, and rightfully so. But yet somebody like Mike Lee could just take down a tweet, and the Republicans are very mum, at least most of them are. There's only been a few Republicans that have spoken out against the tweet because they're all a bunch of cowards.
And they weren't outraged. They spoke out, but they weren't outraged.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to Rebecca. Rebecca's next. Hey, Rebecca, what's going on? Thanks for calling in.
Hi, guys. Leonard, I adore you. You are the yin to Brian's yang. You guys make a great team. And to Lauren, you're full of shit or crap. Your wife probably had a pocket knife on her, or maybe she had some dope. They don't keep you in jail, especially in Vegas, for 4 days on a traffic ticket.
But even if that was true, and you might be right, she got due process. She was able to show up in a courtroom with an attorney. And the fact that this man, I use that term loosely, has no problem with brown people being deported and separated from their families, some sent to an El Salvador prison. And the fact that he, or quite frankly, anybody in this country, wouldn't have a problem with that, it's impossible to have a conversation with somebody like that.
Let me tell you something, Rebecca. Municipal courts, all they want is the ticket taken care of. And if they can get community service, they're happy to get it. If they can get a little payment program for you, they're happy to get it. There's no municipal court who wants to book people. It costs more money to put those people in jail for the time they're in there than it would have been just for the ticket. So my guess is she didn't do her community service. She went in there to try to get another slip to start it again. But if you have it once a week, most of the time at a certain hour and a certain day, and you have to sign in, and if you don't sign in, you get a warrant. So I have to believe that that's probably the most likely scenario. But he didn't want to admit that she didn't show up.
All right. Love you guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
And
Thanks,
thank
Rebecca.
you. Let me be very clear on this. If you support Trump's policies, sending people to El Salvador, defying our own Supreme Court and our Constitution, and you're happy with his immigration policy, then you are despicable. You are a despicable human being who does not want brown people in this country. And if you claim you do, as long as they do it, quote, the right way, then you're lying to yourself, you're lying to your family, and you're lying to the American people. It is simple as that. Let's go to the UK now. Paul is calling from the UK. Good to hear from you, Paul. What's on your mind today?
Hello there, Brian. Thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
I was listening into the show, which I do from time to time, and I was thinking about this whole thing about voting against your own interests. And I have a theory, it's not fact, it just came to my mind, is that for the real cultists, and it is a cult, obviously, because what sort of fool would vote for that guy? I think you've got to be in a cult to be so stupid as to vote for him for a second or third time. It's a currency of loyalty. The more you vote against your own interests, the more you show how loyal you are to dear leader. So it just occurs to me, this may be the reason some of these people seem to vote so much against their own interests, is that they're proving their loyalty. I remember during COVID watching Jordan Klepper doing his kind of comic interviews of people going to a Trump rally, and he's interviewing this middle-aged woman who was on her own, and he said to her, "Do you have a partner?" And she said, "I've got a husband." He said, "Where is he?" He said, "Oh, he died 2 weeks after going to a Trump rally." And Jordan Klepper said, "You're still going?" And she said, "I'd walk 27 miles to go and see him, to see Trump."
Yeah.
And so Trump had killed her husband.
These people
he was still loyal to him.
I think there is a connection between the stupid comments they make
Yep.
that we know are not true and not factual, and showing that they have the loyalty, hoping that Donald Trump will call them and say, "Hey, how'd you like to work for me?"
But Paul, I agree.
Exactly.
Paul, these people are sick. And this is why, and I remember I called it a cult and I used some strong language when I went to a Trump rally back in June. I think it was about a year ago.
Well, the guy hit you with the flag?
Yeah, well, no, that was actually a couple months after. But I put out some videos that went viral, and I called it a cult, and I said it felt uncomfortable, and it felt like a Klan rally, and I made some statements like that. And by the way, I stand by anything and everything I've ever said about many of these people who go to these rallies who voted for Donald Trump, many of them who still support him. And I stand by that. They're ill-informed, they're uneducated, they're ignorant. Many of them are. And in some cases, people like the Marco Rubios of the world, like the J.D. Vances of the world, yes, they might be educated people, but they're cowards and they have no backbone and they're only in it for themselves. That is how I categorize so many of these MAGA Republicans today.
100%, Brian. And they have to play the game of stupid.
Right.
It's the only game you can play if you want to be in Trump's good books. It's the game of stupid.
And I guess some of them are good people.
So they know it's stupid. They know they're saying the daftest stuff.
Do you remember? Okay, so what Leonard just said, Paul, do you remember when Donald Trump was talking about Mexicans coming into this country and he says they're rapists, they're bad people, and I suppose some of them are good people? I am going to say in a general term, which I usually don't do, but I'm going to do this here. For the people today that still support Donald Trump, they're uneducated, they're ill-informed, they're stupid. Many of them are racist and bigots. And I suppose maybe a select few of them are good people. I really, truly feel that way.
Most of them are deranged, but I assume some of them are okay.
Maybe some.
People.
Maybe
Yeah.
a few. Yeah.
When
A
you
lot of
cut
people
out
are saying
the demographic. He's insulted. You're left with you're left with 3 voters.
Yeah, that's true.
I've never understood. I always say, how can a black person vote for Trump? Can't believe it. How can a Mexican? Can't believe it. How can a woman? And by the time you cut out all the demographics who have got no right to vote for him, you're left with about 3 people.
Well, they're regretting it now. They're all saying they regret it.
Someone who served the country. Somebody like
course
Leonard.
they bloody are.
Yeah, someone like Leonard, who's a former police officer. If you're a first responder, yeah, you name it. I agree with you, Paul. It's great to hear from you, my friend.
Thanks,
and
Paul.
I appreciate you.
We like the UK though. We love the UK.
Guys. Thanks, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you. We love our people over there in the UK that are listening, and we appreciate you,
I
Paul.
like the accent.
Oh, I do too.
Hello, Brian.
I like it better on a woman, but that's okay. To each their own. 702-221-7283.
Spoken like a true bachelor.
If Marjorie Taylor Greene was from the UK, I don't know what I would characterize her as. I would say the same thing as Nancy Mace. Let's go to Cheryl. Cheryl is next up on PTL. Hey, Cheryl, what's going on?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hi there.
Hi, Leonard. What really bothers me about callers that call in and say, oh, but where are they being deported to? Are they going to their own country? It really pisses me off because a lot of these people are being deported to their own country that they were fleeing from because they were afraid they were going to die.
Right, they were seeking asylum. You're right.
What's the difference? What's the difference? Where are you deported? They're being deported.
But if you happen to be 10 white people from South Africa, Donald Trump
Right.
will welcome you with open arms. But, the MAGA Republicans will say, it's got nothing to do with the color of skin. Okay, can you tell me a time where Donald Trump gave sovereignty to 10 brown people into this country and said, come on in with their families? No. Why is that? I think it's the same reason why Donald Trump wanted the Central Park 5 to be executed.
It was blatantly racist. I mean, I'll call it what it is.
But when people say, what country? Oh, but what country? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because their situation could be dangerous no matter what.
Well, you know
And
what,
they have
Cheryl?
no reprieve.
You know
They
what's
have no
happening?
reprieve.
They have people coming here who are in the asylum process where they have to interview you, and if you're full of crap, you're pretty much done at that point. But a lot of people legitimately have their family killed by gangs. It's being controlled, like Venezuela, where they're controlled by gangs and violence. And so they're waiting for their court date to find out if a judge has ruled or what their status is, but they can't find out anymore, even though they're seeking asylum. So they might get deported back to Venezuela or Haiti or one of those countries who's a mess, and you'll never see them again. But what you're saying is there's people who don't care.
Yeah,
Why are there people who don't care where they go?
There's a lot of people that don't care because a lot of people, in my opinion, I say this all the time and I'll say it again, are bigoted in nature and that are blatantly racist. Let's go to Jennifer. Jennifer is next up on PTL. Hey, Jennifer, what's going on?
Hey, good afternoon. So I'm Jennifer. I'm from California. I'm a military mom. I'm also a full Ashkenazi Jew. And so I wanted to just bring up something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, which goes along with this idea is that Donald Trump is trying to make America white again. In May, on end of May, like the 29th, the State Department submitted documentation to Congress asking for a alignment of the department, making an office of remigration. And I don't know if anybody really knows what remigration is. Remigration was used in Europe. It's a far-right concept of ethnic cleansing.
Can I ask her a question? Can I ask you a question, Cheryl? So CNN was reporting that a lot of parents of military personnel, both male and female, have contacted the Trump administration and Department of Defense and asked them not to send their children to Iran, not to send them, not to get involved in the war. And they're calling for people, if I remember the article correctly, they're calling on parents to call and say, we don't want our children to go to that war and fight because we feel that it's an unnecessary risk. Are you one of those parents?
You know, my son right now, I haven't been able to talk to him. And I mean, I'm definitely not interested in my son being deployed. He does have friends that have already been deployed already. They're in the middle of the sea. So, you know, I'm hoping that we will use diplomacy, but if it gets to that point, I have no problem. I think that, you know, the reason that I'm calling though is because Marco Rubio wants to make an office of remigration, which is a term that Nazi Germany used to ethnically cleanse Europe. And I think that people aren't talking about this, and I think it's really, really dangerous.
Well, I think there's a lot
you know,
of things. I think there's a lot of things going on in the Trump administration that are very dangerous, and you're absolutely right. This is one of them. So Donald Trump just said that he believes Iran was a few weeks away from a nuclear weapon. Let me be very clear on this once again. Tulsi Gabbard testified under oath, okay, in front of Congress, and accurately stated that it's the position of the U.S. intel community on Iran's nuclear program that they are not trying to further it. Now, Donald Trump completely washed away that statement when he was asked about it on Air Force One yesterday. I personally believe this is George W. Bush all over again. Do we remember when George W. Bush sold the American people and politicians that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction? Turned out there were no weapons of mass destructions. Hundreds of thousands of innocent people lost their lives in Iraq. Thousands of American soldiers. It was an ill-advised war. This is George W. Bush 2.0, only worse. Donald Trump is making a claim with no evidence to back it up. I guarantee you they can falsify it, but no evidence to suggest that Iran is furthering their nuclear capabilities based on the intelligence and what Tulsi Gabbard said back in March. 702-221. 7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Peter. Peter is next up on PTL. What's up, Peter?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Leonard.
Hey.
Hey there, Brian.
Hey, I have two-part question. I want to get your guys' feedback, especially Leonard's. I'm here in Pico Rivera, California. Did you guys hear about the 20-year-old from Walmart that was taken away by ICE yesterday?
Are you talking about the young man that went to court?
No, there was someone they took someone, an undocumented person working at Walmart. This 20-year-old kid, his name's Adrian Martinez, was kind of speaking out for him, kind of defending him, saying why this, why that. You know, he obviously got a little too close. They ended up arresting him, taking him into a truck, and driving off with him. His family still says that they haven't heard from him.
It doesn't surprise me. This is happening all over the country. It just so happens that this one is public, and I did hear about this story. This is happening all over the country. That's just one example of so many more.
Should they not be calling the local police if he's interfering or obstructing? Should they not be calling the local police to
even
come
though they're federal,
arrest him?
they do have the same powers. So they've taken a bunch of people with no training and no experience, in some cases security guards or former police officers, and just given them, from what I understand, the powers of the U.S. Marshals. So they are an official and they are acting in an official capacity. And if you interfere, you are subject to arrest. However, you have to connect the dots. You can't say that, hey, this guy just got in our way and said, don't arrest him. You have to physically interfere. And keep in mind that police and U.S. Marshals can also escalate the situation. They can push into you. They could initiate contact physically or otherwise. And that's kind of what I saw happen with the mayoral candidate in New York. I don't think he's the one who initiated it.
So let me be clear on this, caller. You're right about this story. I read about it, but I think you understand the fact that this is going on throughout the country, and there are a lot of stories that we don't know about. It just so happens, thank goodness, that this story has been covered by the media. But I guarantee you, these things are happening right now as we speak in this phone call, and you won't hear about it. The media won't know about it. There are thousands and thousands of stories like this throughout the country, and that's why I say how dangerous this regime and this dictatorship is, and how anybody in this country can be okay with it is beyond me.
There has to be something wrong with you if you can watch this and you can see it happening right in front of your eyes and you feel nothing.
And they're not even identifying themselves. They look like Antifa, and they're wearing these masks over their faces.
T-shirts.
They're not even
T-shirts and
identifying themselves. You have to identify yourself, Leonard. We are ICE agents. You have to tell them who they are.
In order to get obstructing, you have to know that you're obstructing
Think about this.
a lawful police officer.
Tell me if I'm wrong on this, Leonard. You're in your home, legal or not, you're in a home, and somebody barges and breaks down your door. In most states, you have the right to defend yourself, and you could use deadly force, right?
I would.
Yeah. So if an ICE agent is going into a home and they're not identifying themselves, it's just as dangerous for them as it is for the people that are in the home. What is Tom Homan doing? What are they doing?
Well, how do you get interfering with a public officer or interfering with a police officer or a federal agent when you're wearing T-shirts and jeans? It's almost unfair because they're the ones attacking, grabbing. They don't have their badges. I looked at the video yesterday. I looked at it, and I didn't see any identifying marks, no shoulder patches, no badges, nothing saying, ICE enforcement on there. So How can you obstruct someone if you don't know who they are? You know what I'm saying? You understand what I mean?
Trump's America, ladies and gentlemen. Inflation up to 3%, growth down 1.4%.
He's losing on the economy.
Unemployment up to 4.5%. We're getting into a war with Iran. The Ukraine war is stronger now than it was on day one when Trump took office. What has he done for this country besides break the rule of law without respecting it, breaking our own Constitution and what it specifically says in our Constitution, and pardoning a bunch of January 6ers, some of whom beat police officers with their own batons? What the hell is Donald Trump doing for middle America besides giving the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%? And now Elon Musk seems to be going against Donald Trump. Tucker Carlson appears to be going against Donald Trump. Steve Bannon disagrees with Donald Trump. Joe Rogan. You know it's getting really bad when those people are now speaking out against Trump. 702-221-7283, the number to call. Let's go to Dave. Dave is next up on PTL. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Brian. How's it going?
Good. What's up, Dave?
I just want to make one little comment about the nuclear, like no evidence of nuclear development in Iran. The use of underground protects the Trump administration. Underground, right? They're in a mountain, so we can't see them. So they're invisible. They're made invisible, and therefore it's okay because they're there, but they're invisible.
You're saying it's suspicious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, here's what I will tell you, and you tell me if both of you disagree. And I made this analogy earlier, and I'll make it again. We found Saddam Hussein in a hole in the ground with a pellet pistol and a candy bar. Now, I'm not suggesting that the world isn't a better place without him. Of course it is. The terrible man who was responsible for a lot of people losing their lives. He's a terrorist. But we were given the story that there were weapons of mass destruction. We heard it until the cows come home. And sadly, George W. Bush convinced a lot of Democrats and Republicans. It was an ill-advised war where thousands of our own soldiers lost their lives, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. I personally believe, now I'm not saying we're going to lose that many people here, but what I am saying is this is very similar in this aspect. Donald Trump is lying to us. Tulsi Gabbard was under oath, and she said there was no evidence to provide that they were trying to enable or further their nuclear capability. She just said that a couple months ago under oath. And now we have Donald Trump saying that he believes that they will have a nuclear weapon in 2 weeks with literally no evidence to provide. Make no mistake about it. There's a lot of money involved here. We know the relationship that Donald Trump has with Benjamin Netanyahu, who I also do not support. I support Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu has been a terrible leader for Israel. Terrible. Okay.
Didn't he just retain his power by 2 votes or 3 votes recently?
He has been horrible for Israel. Terrible.
He's a Trump clone.
Yeah.
Did you see the video online of Netanyahu in 1996 saying that they were weeks away from enriched uranium? And then 2002, 2006 should be a few weeks or months.
Leonard,
less than a year.
We've been hearing this for 30 years.
30
that
years.
Iran has these nuclear capabilities. For 30 years from people on the right, we've been hearing this. Why? Money. That's what the Iraq war was about. It was about money. And this is about money. And make no mistake about it. Everything that Donald Trump does and virtually every decision that he makes is about money, enriching his family. We could be talking about crypto or the Bibles that he sells or asking for money to fight election integrity. The only reason why the man hasn't admitted he lost the 2020 election, number one, is ego. Number two, to make money. He made hundreds of millions of dollars of donations saying he would use that money to fight election fraud.
Playing the victim.
Everything Donald Trump does is about money. That's it.
You know what? You know why we lost the Vietnam War?
Because the politicians wouldn't allow
we were
the Army and the Marines to do what they had to do.
Enemy. We were fighting an invisible enemy, and we couldn't win that war. And that's what they're creating in Iran. They're creating an invisible enemy. Trump's creating an invisible enemy, and we're fighting an invisible enemy. Nuclear capability that's being developed in the side of a mountain.
You're right. That's a very Dave, that's a really good way of describing it.
Brian, what do they say is the most profitable business in all of history? What have they always said? War. Correct.
You're right. Let's go to the YouTube. super chat, if I may. And I'll just remind everybody real quickly, we're an independently owned radio show, so your donations are much appreciated, whether it be the YouTube super chat or my personal website, which is pushingthelimits.live, where you can support what we do there and make donations, and we sell merchandise. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live. We're an independently owned radio show, and we rely on good people like you to help what we do here. Brian on the YouTube super chat, we need to speak out on section 70302 of GOP bill that restricts federal courts the ability to hold Trump accountable. I agree with you, Brian. That's a really good point. There are some good Republicans out there. Johanna Jorgensen says, let us not forget Epstein was Israel intel. Israel had all the dirt about Trump being a pedo. Are they blackmailing him into war? Here's what I do think. I believe that they have their intelligence and what they have told Donald Trump. They've been able to persuade him to get involved in this war. Peter says Leonard for governor of Nevada.
That's 10.
There you go. You're getting more votes, Leonard. I think that's also a good thing. And of course, the YouTube super chat where your questions and comments will be read. Shelly says, Brian, I watched some of those videos and they were horrible. Those people were awful to you. I think she was referring to the video where I was in a MAGA crowd and I was assaulted by
going by the
Trump
county
flag.
building.
No, it was a Kamala Harris rally, actually. Shelley also says, did you remember seeing that mayoral candidate when he was getting arrested? There was a man there with a baseball cap on backwards. He looks like no official
That's
ever.
exactly what we're talking about.
That's me. I'm wearing a baseball cap backwards.
They were dressed kind of like you are, most of them.
Yeah, that's true.
No identifiers.
We don't know if these people were Proud Boy members. We don't know who these people were. If they
a
were
lot of people are saying they are.
Yeah, well, they could have been.
A lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
Many people have said.
Many people. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Jeff.
Don't get me started.
Jeff is next on PTL. Hello, Jeff. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Oh, hello. Yes. I find it kind of odd that Trump would be with Netanyahu attacking Iran, yet has done nothing with North Korea, which is a bigger threat.
Such a good point.
You know, you remember the first year, I mean, Kim Jong-un and Trump, you know, they were like,
love letters.
Elon Musk.
They were in love, yeah.
It was like Elon Musk.
So I said that yesterday, and you bring up a very good point. Nobody can convince me otherwise. I can tell you that North Korea is more of a threat to the United States of America, at least right now, and for years, than Iran has ever been. Now, you could make the argument that Iran is more of a threat to Israel than North Korea is, but if we're talking about America first, which Donald Trump says every day, and these MAGA deplorables say every day, then why are we not going, I shouldn't be saying go to war. We don't want to do that. But why is he writing love letters to Kim Jong-un? And why don't we ever hear about their nuclear capabilities? But we want to talk about Iran. I find that very interesting.
North Korea constantly stockpiles weapons. And remember, one of the reasons they're the biggest threat, if you go off the coast of California, it's only 6,000 miles to North Korea.
Yep.
And there's nothing in between but ocean and maybe a few islands.
Yeah.
And you have Guam out there, you know, as a defensive capability, but literally they're only 6,000 miles away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And North Korea is pretty much a proxy for China. And,
I don't know if they agree on everything.
Yeah. And, you know, years ago, they had a cyber attack on Iran's nuclear program. How come they didn't do that? You know what I mean? They could have done a cyber attack on the nuclear facilities in North Korea, too, and Iran.
Yeah. No, you're right. Listen, you bring up a really good point. I've been talking about Kim Jong-un in North Korea for years, but that's the guy that Donald Trump sends love letters to. And during COVID, Donald Trump says COVID test kits to Vladimir Putin. That says all you need to know about who Donald Trump is. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Pat. Pat is next up on PTL. Hey, Pat, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Leonard.
Hi, Pat.
Our system for immigration is the worst thing. How do you let people come over here, sign up to become United States citizens, let them live here for 15 years? And I mean, how do they even become a citizen if it takes that long to become a citizen?
Very few became citizens. The greater majority, in fact, in the millions, are basically illegal aliens that have been working here just fine. They're doing just fine.
Yeah.
Great families, great people.
You're right.
But we need to overhaul the system. That is stupid to let people come here and live for 15 years and don't decide whether they can live here or not.
It's very simple. And people can go back and they can look at this. Republicans are the party that continually make it more difficult for people to become naturalized citizens. Democrats are the party that have been trying for years to make it easier for people to become legal citizens. So when a MAGA Republican tells you, we want people in this country from all over the world, but we want them to do it the right way, my response to them is, if you were telling the truth, then why do you guys keep voting against bills that would make it easier for people to become naturalized citizens? It shouldn't take any more than a year. It shouldn't take any more than a year. And the fact that people have to wait 10 to 15 years, it's despicable. This country was founded on immigrants. Despicable.
It's just racism, and they want them out. They want the people out, and it's just racism.
Yeah.
There's no real logic to it, and there never is with racism.
I appreciate your call, my dear, and I agree with you 100%. Let's go to CJ. CJ is next up on PTL. Hey, CJ, what's up?
Hey, about some earlier discussion with that one caller. I forget his name, Leonard, or not Leonard.
Lauren.
Yeah, Lawrence, right. You're Leonard over there. Okay. But in general, though, I think a lot of this, it isn't just racism. Have you heard of something called last place avoidance or aversion syndrome?
I have not. Explain.
That is a sociological principle, a phenomenon that's been discussed for years. And LBJ expressed it to, I think it was Bill Moyers. He said, I'll tell you, it's at the heart of it. If you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored person, he'll empty his he won't notice that you're picking his pockets. Heck, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you.
Yeah.
Isn't that very similar to what Hitler did? Didn't he do the same exact thing?
Yeah, but also, I highly recommend the South Park episode, "The Poor Kid."
I'll watch that.
Illustrates.
I'll watch that, my friend, and I do like South Park. South Park. I enjoy watching it. Thank you for the call, my friend. Let's go to Kathy. Kathy's next up on PTL. What's up, Kathy?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Lorna. How you doing today?
Hi there.
I just wanted to make a comment that I think this whole war or talk of war is nothing more than a wag the dog moment. And I'll tell you why. Because he's been having a bad 2 weeks. He didn't get the attention that he wanted for his dictator parade. More people came out to support undocumented people, and in the No Kings rallies, his big beautiful bill has stalled in the Senate. So what's the best way to get people's attention? Let's start a war. But now the thing that I don't understand is that both Iran and North Korea have been helping Russia with troops and weapons in Ukraine. So I'm surprised that he is actually going there and that his buddy Putin hasn't said anything about it. I think that...
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're up against the clock, my dear, so I'm sorry to cut you short here, but I don't disagree with that at all. So this is breaking news that's just in. Donald Trump, right now as we speak, is holding a National Security Council meeting in the Situation Room. I would be willing to bet that it is going to be the final meeting.
You think he's going to give the green light?
Before he finally gives the green light. He just made the statement that he believes in 2 weeks Iran is going to have nuclear capabilities. Now he's holding a meeting, a National Security Council meeting. I believe the official announcement will be made at some point today.
There's a third aircraft carrier en route, and last night they said it would be in the area in several hours. And one has stealth fighters, and the other one has fighter jets, and I think the other one is possibly a destroyer with spy equipment. So you don't move assets like that in the area just for defensive purposes.
Here's what I can promise you: we will on this show cover it. We will cover anything and everything that's going on. We will separate fact from fiction. I will give you my opinions, and you guys will always have the platform to call into this show. There's no question about that. And we have a great guest. Not that Leonard isn't a great guest, right? Well, he's a guest every week. He's a regular. And so
I'm the yin to your yang, according to the one
Yes,
caller.
I like that. You are. Ron Filipkowski from Midas Touch will be
Good
joining
guy.
us to start the show tomorrow.
Smart guy.
You're not going to want to miss that. We had Daniel Koh on the show earlier today, former deputy assistant to President Joe Biden, great guest today. And we are going to continue to monitor this. The world is on fire. The country is on fire. We have wars all over the world. But anything and everything that happens under Donald Trump that is a detriment to this country and to the world, he blames Joe Biden. This is not Joe Biden's fault. It's not Joe Biden's fault that inflation is up 3%. Growth is down 1.4%. This is not his fault. I do want to thank a few people that went to my website. Lori, thank you for your very generous donation. She says, thank you for all that you do. Jeff, also with a very generous donation, said, I listen to your show every day and I appreciate what you do. And Bob made a generous donation and says, I listen to your show every single day. Keep up the great work. They went to pushingthelimits.live. Again, that's pushingthelimits.live. This is an independently owned radio show where you can make contributions and donations, and you can also buy PTL gear. So we would recommend, if you want to support what we do here, please do that. We appreciate you. And anybody, of course, that wants to send gifts, whether it be on TikTok or the YouTube Super Chat, which we also appreciate very much. Leonard, another
fun,
busy, packed show. But I always appreciate.
I can't believe how fast it went by. We barely got to everything.
It does go by very, very fast. It only goes by very, very slow at a Donald Trump rally. And that's why, by the way, at his birthday bash, did you see the thousands of people that were leaving early again?
Oh, my God.
Just like many
and they were
rallies.
trying to pay people.
Oh, jeez.
Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget.
Yes. Subscribe to the YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. That would be my personal YouTube page. We just surpassed yesterday 118,000 subscribers. So that is still going strong.
Applause.
Yes. So we're going to continue to move ahead and keep doing what we're doing here, right? Thanks to Numbchuck and everybody here. We are going to be back at it tomorrow, same time, same place. Starting the show tomorrow, you're not going to want to miss it. Ron Filipkowski from Midas Touch. They have the hottest podcast in America, and he'll be joining me to start the show. Leonard, appreciate it as always.
Brian,
Thank you for
again.
being here.
Have a
We
good
will
day.
see all of you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more.